It's the 17th of June 2025. You're very welcome back. I hate having to make so many videos, but there's so much going on in the world that any video could be me last, because the whole thing could blow up all around us. But anyway, Joe Finnegan, he's the anchor at Shannon Side Northern Sound, which broadcasts from Athlone up to Monaghan, Dundalk, well, up to Monaghan, Leitrim, that sort of an area there, Ballahadureen over. And it really is a divided listenership, because we have a slightly different attitude to life in Monaghan and in Cavan, and particularly East Cavan and Meath, than there is down in Roscommon. It doesn't mean there's any problem with it, but there is a slightly difference between the people. But I'm not making any big issue of that, because that's the way the country is. Now, the thing is, he was on this morning about migration, and somebody wrote in to say there was too many migrants. And the first lie he told, ups with a big whopper of a lie. He says we need workers. So it's quite obvious that he's been told, and he's been programmed by his program people. He's organised by Airgrid, he's financed by Airgrid. There is no balance. The likes of me cannot get on there under any circumstances. I got on once, and when I said me few words, he eventually, that finished it. I wasn't never allowed on again. Now, you see, the thing what he's doing is, we know that people have come here from within the European Union, and they have come here to work. We know there are people from the Philippines here, and we know there are people from other places who come here through a legal process and get jobs. But we also know that we have to limit the amount of them, because they'll destroy the jobs of our native people. So we have to limit. The place for good lorry drivers from Pakistan is in Pakistan. The place for good lorry drivers in Ireland is in Ireland, from Ireland. And there can be a bit of crossover, and we have a good deal of crossover between Ireland and the United Kingdom. But this thing of conflating or confusing or mixing up what's happening. The migrants arrive into Italy or into Germany, where they're encouraged to come by left-wing policies. They arrive there. They won't keep them because there's too much pressure on their services, and so they have an agreement with the Irish government and with Britain to a certain extent, but it's slightly different in Britain. They come across the channel there, and they are bussed in the dead of night into special centres, and no one knows who they are. And I keep repeating, Clifford Kelly, Fianna Fáil County Councillor, said that he tried to find out who they were, and he was told, hump off it yourself, you're not going to be told. Now, also Joe Finnegan was raving on the other day on Shannon Side Northern Sound. He went to Dublin to see what all the fuss was about. And he went down to the Financial Services Centre, and he saw nothing. He saw nothing. He saw no migrants, nothing, nobody begging or anything else. He didn't go into O'Connell Street. He didn't go up into Summerhill. He didn't go into Dorset Street. And there's a lady in Dorset Street opened a shop, a hairdresser shop in Dorset Street, and was first forced to close by the constant harassment from migrants, from illegal migrants that were bussed in. They're now in the centres to house these protected people. All men, all hassling them. They put her out, begging, coming in, demanding this and demanding that, and the guards had no function, and she had to close her shop. Now, Joe, you go and interview her, but of course you won't, because you're nothing, only a propaganda machine. That's it. Now, the idea of being harassed in your business is not new to me, because as I told you, I was a member of the Garda Síochána in a former life. I don't apologise to anyone. If you don't like it, you know where the gate is, out there. Hump off the stop button. I don't care whether you like it or not. Now, the thing about it is, I remember one time, one of my duties was to go down and arrest people down the country, in various stations, maybe down in Mullingar in one case, Tullamore. And what would happen is, these criminals from Dublin would do depredation in Mayo, and they'd be caught coming back, and we'd know we had fingerprints that they did jobs in my area, and I was an active guard, and I'd go down and I'd interview them and try and solve my crime. And at that stage, I used to discover people from Cork and down the south, who did crimes in Cork from Dublin. And I'd ring the local superintendent down in some of the stations in Cork or Kerry, and even Limerick, and I'd tell him, Joe Soap did that, I have the evidence, go up and catch him and take him down. And he'd say, we never leave our area. We will not leave our area. That's a golden rule. So look at the rule that it had in the south of Ireland, in the Gardaí, that if someone went down and inflicted untold damage on a premises, or if they didn't kill, if they killed someone, it'd be different. But if they, let's say, only cut off their finger, that's only an assault. The super would not let his men leave his own district because it had cost him money and he wasn't capable of managing that type of duty. That happened to me. I'm a witness to it. I tell you, that's the truth. No doubt about it. Put me on a cross-examination and I'll answer it exactly. Right. But I remember one time I was down in a station down in the southeast Midlands. Wouldn't be that far from Dublin. And I was there anyway, and there was a couple of people in, but among them was a travelling lad, and he was from a good enough travelling family, but he started taking drugs and heroin, and he was a bad egg. But I remember inquiring into it up the street, and there was a lady had a coin castle, a kind of a little one-arm bandit machine to make a few bob, and she had up a little alleyway, and she was working away there, and people would come in and put on a few bob or bet on something and pull the handle and hope it'd make something. And she was a nice lady. It was just a little earner for her. But this particular travelling fella, he was a travelling member of the travelling community. He was about 24. He kept harassing her and harrying her and abusing her until she had to close her shop. But I remember he was down seeing his friends that I was after. When I get me grip on them, I didn't care whether they were farmer's son, politician's son, solicitor's son, travellers. I got them, and their father be down, big barristers, and I'd tell them, see the gate, you got your 5 minutes, out. You can't treat me like that. Get out! Tell them straight. I took no baloney from them. And I didn't care who they were. So I wasn't biased against travellers, but they were treated the same as everyone else. And if they'd done damage, they paid the price. And they didn't like doing their bird. They didn't like going to jail. Now, I have friends among the travelling community. Let that be said. Friends I would help if they were in trouble, and if anyone was giving them abuse, I'd try and intervene and stop it. But anyway, this fellow was on the floor anyway, and he was a bit high. He was still coming down off the drugs a bit, but he was a bad egg. And I always remember what he said when he saw me, because I had a kind of a face on me. He knew he was dealing with no cod. And I wasn't directly arresting him, but his pals was there, you see. And anyway, and there was other Dublin Gurriers there. There was a heap of them on the go. Once I'd arrive into an area, you'd have Dublin Gurriers, you'd have travelling Gurriers, you'd have foreign Gurriers, they'd all be there because I'd be lifting them in, be the handful, be the bucket, and their friends would be down on their mothers, on their old ones, on their grannies, Sergeant, and I'd have the place full of them, and the station orderly wouldn't know what to do. This fella coming down here, this Val Martin, he's the whole place full of criminals. Oh, that was my job, you see. The thing is, anyway, I always remember he was being let out by some other guard. And he says, F, you know the word, F you know that word, I'll not quote it here for you, Jesus. And I remember me saying to him, why do you take it out on Jesus Christ? F him, off him, off him. The following week, I must have seen it in the paper or something. He went off and he stole a car and he whacked it into a tree and he was killed. Within a week of him saying that. Now, I know it could be coincidence. Now, anyway, I digress a bit. Joe Finnegan, I'm on his back. He has a chance to interview me. Joe, I'll put you out of it. I'll keep after you that you not get issued another woke lie. To put working people who come here from Poland or from Ballymena, and I've made, or from the Philippines, and go here to the south or up to Ballymena. I've made a video to leave them alone. Them are people coming here to work, and they could be looking after me someday in a nursing home, or you either. They have proper, that's what we want, proper migration control. There's no migration control. That old yoke, Ursula von der Leyen, sends a busloads of men. And it was on, and they send them over here and they're put up at our expense, hanging around the streets. That's the reality. That's the lie between mixing one up with the other. And that's how propaganda works. You make this point and hope the people will get that point. Oh, well, we need them to work. when in fact these people have no intention of working. They're out begging on the streets, they can't work in any event, and they have no qualification. Now, the other thing about them is when people come here like that, from some countries, the standard of public behaviour is different. I mean, in some countries, a woman wouldn't walk down the street with a short, tight skirt, whereas in Ireland, we say she should be able to do that. Well, these fellas can't. Then the other thing, they're starved where they come from, and when they come over here, they're giving them beef and lamb, and the testosterone levels goes way up. They're fed for the first time in their life. Because if they had money, they wouldn't buy meat anyway. They wouldn't buy good food because they ate any old crap over there. But some of them hunt, not all. Some of them would hunt and catch a deer. Fair enough, no problem there. But that's the trouble. And then they commit these sexual assaults, and then the whole place is upside down, and we have to pay for the whole lot. Now, that's Joe. Anyway, I hope I put manners on him for the day and his old baloney trying to confuse the two. There is no comparison by a proper regulated immigration system for the needs of this country and to keep its services going for the people that are here and at the will of the people. There's no referendum from this. And people who are bussed in the dead of night, who have nothing to do with here, came to maybe South Italy, came to Germany, and it should be their problem. That was the law for years, the first country they arrived in. So that's the difference. So as long as you have lads like Joe Finnegan spouting on this woke stuff, you're not going anywhere. But the thing to do, folks, is don't listen to Shannon Side Northern Sound. It's a fake news medium, and they can sue me if they want, because I have the witnesses that heard him saying that. Now, the thing is, too, that was this morning he said that. Now, the other thing is, GB News is a conservative outlet, and Nigel Farage worked for them there for a good while, and they've kept harping on about the attacks on the grooming of children and young girls in Britain. Up to maybe 20,000-30,000 were groomed for sex, and they kept the pressure on, and Starmer, he didn't want that. Oh, we can't do any of that. Oh, somebody we know might get caught up in it, you know. Oh, we don't want that. But they kept the pressure on, and a public inquiry has been announced into that. And GB News said yesterday that people from Afghanistan and Pakistan do not have the same levels of self-control as other people. And I know that doesn't go down well with our government. And I say to our government, that's what it said on GB News. Get after them. I heard them saying it. I'm repeating it. I can't prove it, but having said that, it's well known that the people who are doing the grooming were Asian people. That's a fact. It's well known. That's going to come out in the wash. And if they sue me or take me up for hate speech, I'll adjourn it I'll ask that it be adjourned until the result of that inquiry is over. That's not our problem. When you're born in Ireland, you learn that there's certain rules in our society. When you're moved in the dead of night and you go on the street, you're in a totally different environment. And so the thing is, they shouldn't be moved in the dead of night at all. But it's great that inquiry is now taking place in the UK about the grooming gangs, and I'd say there's a lot of people now who are very worried about it, and we'll see how Mr. Starmer, he was in charge of the Crown Prosecution Service, and the word is he swept the whole thing under the carpet, which is what you would expect. Meanwhile, the three people who burned his property are still awaiting trial. That's put back for a year. Imagine a year. And if it was a rioter in Portadown, he'd be up in court the following day. And yet they put this back for a year. There is no excuse. As a retired police officer investigating all my life, I'd have that all processed in 3 months. I'd be ready for court by October. So why is it all being pushed back? We don't know. Anyway, we'll see. Everyone's entitled to a fair trial. I think the inquiry in the UK on the grooming will probably take place by a retired judge. We'll see who it is, him or her. Usually retired judges in inquiries are all right, because what happens is, in Ireland, you get to be 70, you have to leave the bench, you have a lot of experience, you don't want to be hearing cases, you're sick of the old scene there, and that has to be said about courtrooms. The idea that the judges are there to screw everybody, well, a lot of the time they're just there to get the job done. They're sitting there in the courts and trying to get home early like anybody else. That's a lot of thing. I wouldn't really blame them for that much. But the thing is, then your man retires and all of the judges retire and they go off into the sunset, but a nod to them that come up an inquiry. And so they'll pick a judge. And usually that judge will want to do a good job because there are too many eyes upon him. So he'll have to go through all the things, and he's retired and he'll come back and he has no other cases. So he doesn't have to go and do a different case. He doesn't have to do two company law cases today and another one for a separation or a divorce or whatever. He doesn't have to. He's just the one thing, and he can concentrate on that. So because of that, the public inquiries are not bad. Now, one of the things about a public inquiry, if you testify in a public inquiry, that can't be used against you. So if I go into a public inquiry and I admit I done some dastardly act, the guards can't prosecute me for saying that. You have cover against that. They have to come and interview you afterwards, and they can do that, but you don't have to give a reply. So you're covered for liability for what you say. That's so that you can speak the truth when you get in there. Fair enough, I wouldn't have it any other way. Is that all right now? I think I've covered everything, but that's the Bowl Joe Finnegan. I want on his programme, but he won't let me on. And you should turn him off. Don't be listening to him. There's nothing on that fella that's any good. So don't even do a cattle market reporter. It's just an alien. And I get the impression with him, he doesn't like country people at all. He hates cut and turf. You can go where you like, Joe, but you have a propaganda machine at your disposal, and you can't expect a farmer with cows like me, with nearly 11,000 subscribers, to let you away with it. Oh, we need them here for working. What a porky pie. It must be some. Did they take him away, I wonder, up to Dublin and groom all these local radios? Is your man in LFMM the same? And all these Midland 103? I'd say to bring them to Dublin and give them a tutoring. I'd like Joe Finnegan to answer that. Was he ever brought off and given an in-service training on how to be woke or other things? That's what I'd love to know. Anyway, 16 minutes, folks. Not doing too bad. Good luck. We'll see you back.